It's time for a little comedy, a little content, and a lot of conversation. It's the Geno Jones Show, exclusively right here on YouTube. Now here's your host, Geno Jones.
What's happening, everybody? It is showtime. Geno Jones Showtime. So I'm coming to you live at 6:30, by 6:30, 6:31, depending on what your clock is. Some a little fast, a little slow. So 6:30, Monday through Friday. Programming note, there's going to be no live show on tomorrow, on Tuesday, May 20th. I'm celebrating my birthday, and I'm taking the day off from TV, from radio, just to do me, celebrate life. However, I will be back on television right here on the Geno Jones Show YouTube channel, the Geno Jones Show live Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, unless something else happens, and I'll put some kind of message out on social media. But no live show on Tuesday, but I'm here live right now, Monday through Friday. Tell everybody to subscribe to the channel, screen grab, rip some of the video, like, binge watch all my back episodes. Once again, it is so important we support Black-owned media. I want to thank those in advance that have sponsored the show and my media company, like the Crate Group, one of the top nonprofits in America. My man Kendrick Bannister. Kendrick Bannister is the CEO, thecrategroup.org. Shout out to City Vibes Bar and Lounge, ultimate adult night spot here in the Charleston, South Carolina metro. They got a big Memorial Day weekend and a big first year anniversary coming up. Shout out to Kenya and Corey Williams, 9730 Dorchester Road. As a matter of fact, Kenya is scheduled to be my guest co-host. Guest co-host on the TV show. No DJ. That's what the radio did. I'm my guest co-host on this Wednesday. So if you would like to be a sponsor, I'd be honored to have you as part of the Geno Jones Show family. You can sponsor the show, support my media company. It's so important we support Black-owned media. I can't stress it enough. And I do need your financial support to grow the show and my company, to be able to empower. My goal is to go ahead and have a payroll where I can bring on producers and some talented people, writers and camera people, because we are going to expand my company, the show, the studio, but we need your support. So I humbly ask you, if you love the show, if you believe in its purpose and its mission, for those who's been watching, we are dedicated toward the culture and the community, and we use entertainment and humor. That's like the candy to get you to taste the medicine, which is the information, the education, the enlightenment, the empowerment, the inspiration, and the motivation that we so desperately need, because we are all we got. But the truth is, we are all we need. We have everything that we need to not just survive, but thrive. So if you would like support that mission, you can Cash App or Zelle me. You can Cash App my media company directly. You can Zelle my media company directly. So Zelle is, just type in Geno Jones. That's how you spell it behind me. Geno Jones, and use my email address, GenoJonesShow@gmail. So to Zelle, type in the name Geno Jones, and then you can Zelle me by my email address, via my email address, GenoJonesShow@gmail. You can Cash App, $Dad G Jones. All one word. $, capital D, lowercase a D, capital G, capital J, O, lowercase o N-E-S. So $, capital D like Dad, lowercase a-D like Apple, David, capital G like Geno, capital J like Jones, lowercase o like Oprah, N like Nancy, E like extra, S like Sam. $Dad G Jones. No amount is too small or too large. $5, $50 million. We'll take it all. So thank you. So today, happy heavenly birthday. First of all, happy birthday to all my May Tauruses celebrating a birthday, an incredible writer, Lorraine Hansberry. Shout out to my brother-in-law, who is my brother. We just didn't come from the same womb. My brother-in-law for over 3 decades, Perry Jones, who is truly a blessing. He works with my mother every day. He's there with her, supporting her. As a matter of fact, he's employed by my mom or a company. So the help and the peace of mind that he gives me and the family is, I can't even really describe it. All right, that's his nickname. All right, big fella, happy birthday. Enjoy the game. I love you, man. You know that. And it's real. I love you, and I appreciate you loving my mother. She's our mother, but loving the woman that gave me life like she gave you life and birthed you into the world. So I appreciate you, brother-in-law. Appreciate that. All right. And a special happy heavenly birthday to one of the most incredible human beings in terms of his character, his constitution, not just what he stood for, but how he lived his life consistently for many years, his journey, his incredible journey, highs, lows, you name all of it. One, Malcolm Little, AKA Hajj Malik El Shabazz, Malcolm X. Happy heavenly birthday. Malcolm would have been 100 today. Born on this day, May 19th in 1925, February 21st, 1965, assassinated in the Audubon Theater in Harlem, New York City. I want to honor the life, the legacy, the impact that Malcolm had on not just me, but so many people. And my guest, he's been a guest of mine. He hadn't been on the show in a long time. And this is like an early birthday present because he has some other plans that he's put on hold. So I got to apologize to his queen because they had plans. But he said, all right, cuz, for you, I'm going to be there for you. He grew up in the Nation of Islam. He's been working in media for 30 plus years now. He formerly worked at CNN as an editor, producer. Then he's with CCTV as editor, producer, documentarian, filmmaker, multi-skilled brother, and family. Full disclosure, this is family, and I'm bringing him back to the show, brother Rashid Abdullah. Ladies and gentlemen, there he is. All right, cuz, you can unmute your mic. Let's do this thing, man. Thank you. I appreciate it. And shout out to your queen. Flav, I love you. I appreciate you. I owe you some flowers, or I got a cake, Zelle and Cash App y'all dinner on me or something. So I appreciate you letting me borrow cuz for a little while. So I'm gonna jump right into it. Today, like I said earlier, cuz Malcolm Little, Omaha, Nebraska, May 19th, 1925. Mom and dad, as a matter of fact, mom from Grenada. Dad was influenced by Marcus Garvey's movement, Pan-African, which, in case y'all wonder what Pan-African is, uniting everyone of like the African background or African diaspora, which meant blacks here in America, the United States, blacks in South America, blacks in the Caribbean, blacks in, yes, you got blacks in Latin America, like Mexico. Oh yeah, there was an underground railroad. A lot of those are enslaved ancestors. Oh yeah, there was a little pocket of Mexico where they went to. So, and just the African diaspora between the continent of Africa, the Americas, Asia, all around the world. And his incredible journey. Had a teacher tell him that he would never be anything successful. His father was assassinated. Cuz, you can help me out. I think his father was killed, assassinated.
Yeah.
Was in front of him, right?
Yeah. Memory serves me correctly, I believe so. It was definitely in front of his mother, because I believe that's what drove her to
have a mental breakdown, and she was
exactly.
institutionalized. Yeah.
Exactly.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Right. Yeah.
So his journey, then he took a turn, I guess in his early 20s, late teens, early 20s. He led a life of crime. His words, as a matter of fact, I got to shout out the autobiography of Malcolm X that I read when I was 15. I was a sophomore in high school, Dunbar Vocational High School. And shout out to Miss Hopkins. We had a class like urban studies. It was like modern history. And I guess she gave us a project because to do a book report on some famous, maybe, because I'm thinking it was like Black History Month. And I think that she invited us to pick someone, pick a black person who's famous to do a book report on. And I remember, because shout out to my mother who's watching right now, so someone in our neighborhood gave my mother the autobiography of Malcolm X written by Alex Haley, which is an incredible book to this day. I encourage everybody to get it. So that book was in my house for some time. And I guess I got empowered. So when my teacher gave us this assignment, I remembered, that book about Malcolm X. I always wanted, because in grade school, elementary school, they didn't teach us about Malcolm X. You would hear about Dr. King and Charles Drew and Mary McLeod Bethune and maybe a little bit about Booker T. Washington, but nothing about Malcolm X. So I was curious, and when I read this book, cause a fire was lit inside of me. It when I say it changed my life, it lit a fire, and there was so much about his journey. I really connected with the part I remember reading when he said that there was a teacher, because he was a very intelligent, excellent student, and there was a teacher that basically said that he would never be anything. I think he said he wanted to, I forgot the profession, and she's like,
yeah, I think he wound up. I think he wanted to be he wanted to be a lawyer. I think
yes, something like that.
And and they told him and stuff that he should focus probably on carpentry or something to that effect. Some kind of trade.
Yes,
is what he was told. Yeah.
So he talked about how that really bothered him, and that resonated with me because I was an excellent student, especially in elementary school. And then fast forward his journey about how he turned to a life of crime, would breaking into people's homes, burglary and drugs, and pimping women, white women. He was just all type of criminal activity. As a matter of fact, that criminal activity, and he was very honest and open about it. He didn't glorify it, but he didn't run from it. And he talked about that behavior got him in jail. And then when he went to jail, many people know the story now because if for no other reason, shout out to Spike Lee, one of the greatest movies, and there's no way he should not have gotten an Academy. That should have been the best picture of the year because it was. And Denzel definitely should have gotten an Academy Award for his portrayal because he became Malcolm X. He wasn't acting. Anybody who saw that movie, Denzel truly became Malcolm X. And Spike Lee, the job he did, how it didn't get Best Picture and Director of the Year, that's a different conversation. But you saw the way he wound up in prison, and he met a brother who was with the Nation of Islam, and he became a Muslim. He was studying in Islam, and then he eventually got a chance to get out, and he met Elijah Muhammad, and then they fell out, and then he went to Mecca, and then realized that there were white men with blonde hair and blue eyes who practiced Islam, who he prayed with. So there was another, that was part of his evolution and his the global impact that he had with, like I said, people of the African diaspora, Cuba, back on the motherland, the continent of Africa, all across the world. And it made some people nervous, i.e. specifically the CIA and the FBI. Hence he was assassinated. And of course, the media narrative, there were those who were insiders, who were affiliated or part of the Nation of Islam. But it's clear now that we know that the CIA, there have been so many reports and documentaries that the CIA and the FBI had their fingerprints. It may have been black faces that pulled the trigger, and if I believe, correct me, because that the black men who were, I guess, part of the nation, who were originally charged and put in prison, we learned and we found out they weren't the shooters.
No, they were not, and they knew that all along, which is sad. We know that now and stuff because of recent documentaries that have come out that actually trace. Yeah, there were brothers from the nation that did this, but it was not the ones that were arrested and served time for it. So, but yeah, my story, I guess, or with Malcolm, probably in me discovering, this brother is probably around the same time that you did, man, because as a matter of, I mean, being in the Nation of Islam during a time when I grew up in the Nation of Islam, Malcolm at that particular time, um, had been considered, he had been banned from the Nation of Islam because of the fallout with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And so because of that, growing up in the Nation of Islam, I had heard about this dude, this Malcolm character. In fact, there was a picture that we had in our house when he visited, at that particular time, at the Cleveland Mosque or Cleveland Temple. And there's a picture with he and my father and some other, Nation of Islam officials. And I remember as a kid, there was a hole drawn around this tall dude that was in the picture. Because
Really?
I do remember,
Oh,
true story.
wow.
So, and this was, this was, after the whole him being expelled and then being, thrown out of the Nation of Islam, and then him being considered a hypocrite. So me growing up in the Nation of Islam, Malcolm was considered a Benedict Arnold. He was considered a hypocrite. He was considered he was considered Judas, actually. He was referred to as Judas. And so it wasn't until Elijah Muhammad died and his son, Warith Dean Muhammad, peace be upon him, peace be upon both of them, came in and basically uh, what is I guess what
You want to
am I
say
trying?
forgave or kind of
I don't even want
not
to say not
forgiven?
even not forgiven. I wouldn't say forgiven. What he did was he
Because I mean, Malcolm really, the truth, and not to cut you off, but he
and
didn't.
the way
Malcolm
he
didn't really do any. Of
there
course, people in the
yeah
nation would say, yeah, he, like you said, he was a Judas. But I want you to really drill down on
yeah
why those inside the nation, not all, but some, there was a group called him the Judas. And basically, for people that saw the movie, you saw the story to where Malcolm X discovered that Elijah Muhammad had fathered children outside of
yes
his marriage by a
hmm
group of younger women who were part of the nation. And Malcolm
exactly.
got wind of that. Now, help me out, because I know movies they were always embellished, somewhat. How close to accurate was it that Malcolm actually got a chance to sit down and talk to face some of these women, young women that had fathered children by Malcolm X, and
Well,
those young women told Malcolm to his face that yes, their children were fathered by Elijah Muhammad. Is that
yeah,
how
no,
accurate was that scene?
that part, yeah, that I mean, based on the book, which is how all of us
And we
came
talk
about
about the
to
autobiography of Malcolm
the
X, written by
autobiography.
Alex
Yeah, yeah,
Haley. Yes.
right, yeah, and Malcolm actually telling his story to him. So, but yeah, based on that, yeah, it was relatively accurate. I think again, and none of that was never explained as you're growing up in the Nation of Islam, other than he was just a Judas and he was this. As and again, going back to when Elijah Muhammad died and Warith Dean Muhammad became the leader of the Nation of Islam, what he did was, and again, I still am trying to come up with the adjective, but he basically, you know, um, uh, revived the legacy of
I
Malcolm
was
is
just
what
about to
he
say that.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, he revived the legacy of Malcolm and basically explained that this brother had been maligned unjustly to a certain degree, and that um, and that we should honor him. And so after that whole uh, uh, rule or whatever you want to call it that existed in the Nation of Islam, that he tried to
It's almost like an
bring them.
epiphany. So War of
Well,
Dean,
well,
it
well,
was an
really,
epiphany for the nation. Is that an accurate way to
yes, it
describe
was.
it?
Yes, it was. For those and stuff who still harbored feelings deep down inside about Malcolm and always, wonder why it came to what it did. So yeah, so from that point on, um, I, as you, growing up in the Nation of Islam, you know, just began to. Oh, you still there?
Yeah, go ahead, kid. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah,
I just
yeah, yeah,
stepped
yeah.
off camera. You good?
Yeah. Okay, yeah. No, yeah. I, was curious about who this brother was. Is this Malcolm, man? And as I read the autobiography, and then I listened to tapes, I was conflicted as probably most young people who were my age, who grew up in that era when you didn't speak Malcolm's name. After discovering this guy, I was just like, whoa,
So, cuz, let me just
man.
real quick to that point. So, about what year did it become acceptable for those who were part of the nation to discuss Malcolm, and when did basically War of Dean say that, listen, this man was treated unjustly, and that we should honor his legacy? About what year was that? What was the
Around
period when, from the
about
time he was kind
1960,
of excommunicated until when he just the whole conversation and legacy of Malcolm became okay for those in the nation?
so he was excommunicated, I believe, in 1963 from the Nation of Islam. When Warif Dean, decided to uh, um, enlighten us about this brother, it was 1973.
Wow,
So it was
10 years.
basically, just basically pretty much 10 years later.
Mm.
So, and again, like still growing up, in the Nation of Islam, I would hear about Malcolm here and there, barbershop and discussions, and with other older brothers, sitting up here trying to shoot down anybody that brought them up, that brought up Malcolm and who would try and praise Malcolm, and because it was almost like in the times of Pharaoh and stuff. No, don't speak of Moses' name. No, you couldn't speak of Malcolm's name in a favorable way
Wow.
in a Muslim's house in the Nation of Islam during that
For 10
period.
years. Wow.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, but later on, after I discovered this brother, and then after I actually heard him speak, it was one of those where I was just, I was conflicted. And I remember confronting my parents, and was just like, hey, I mean, what happened? And why did you guys decide to stay with Elijah in the Nation of Islam? And because to me, after hearing him, um, his message was clear to me as a young person, even though I had missed 10 years of who this dude was.
And the funny part is that it was clear to you. You grew up in the nation. It was clear to me, and I grew up in a Baptist Christian church, and it was
Right.
clear to me as a teenager.
And realistically, he spoke to me more than Elijah spoke to me, even though when you talk to the old heads, you talk to some of the your older brothers and sisters, and ask them about it and the reason why they decided to stick with Elijah. For example, my parents included, and they were like, because and it was them embracing the spirituality of the Nation of Islam, not just the message of
Like liberation with Malcolm was on.
of liberating our people, of self-help, of self-determination. To them, they embrace the spiritual part. So that, in their eyes, Malcolm would be nothing without Elijah. That Malcolm was nothing but they would say Malcolm was a criminal. That was the first thing. Malcolm was a criminal. No, that's what they would say. Boy, Malcolm was a criminal.
Wow.
He said, and he wasn't, basically they would say he wasn't shit until he met the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and he raised his ass from the dead, and blah, 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 blah. So you were always going to hear that argument.
Wow. Hey, let me just say this, because we, full disclosure, we had like a pre-show meeting, and I know I'm running out of time, but I want to say this, and I got a final question for you. That Malcolm was anointed by Allah, not Elijah Muhammad. And that's no shade to Elijah Muhammad, because Elijah Muhammad was not anointed by any human. He was anointed. You can make that argument by God. So it's just ironic that for people to say, well, that Malcolm X wouldn't be anything without Elijah, but no, what was in Malcolm, even though it was the teaching, but Malcolm was who he was, that journey from the influence of his father and his mother growing up in a house where they understood that, a house that was part of the teachings of Marcus Garvey. And Marcus Garvey, I explained earlier, was about basically just the unity of blacks, people of African descent all across the globe. So the seed was there, and God is the one that anointed Malcolm. Am I off with that?
And I agree, but again, as I said before and stuff, this was after having the discussion with them, my parents, and then, and then other folks and stuff who had been in the Nation of Islam who were their age. And after finally discovering who this brother was that had been basically just shunned and just, after that discovery, as I said to you earlier, Malcolm spoke to me more than Elijah spoke to me. And I had told, I think I told my mom at one time, I was just like, hey, I said, I think that if I were in your shoes, I would have done this differently. I probably would not have gone the same route. And, but my mom would always say, yeah, but, again, without Elijah, maybe there's no Malcolm. It's like, true, but as it stands, and stuff,
and
again.
Who knows? Allah could have found, because Elijah could make an argument that Elijah was a vessel for part, because before Elijah Muhammad, you had the character Bain, you had the man who basically helped Malcolm discover Islam. So it was like Allah used various people as vessels to help Malcolm become the man who he was. But he didn't stop with Elijah, because after Malcolm saw the hypocrisy with Elijah Muhammad, his evolution continued. Because you know better than me, I'll let you speak to it. He went to Mecca, and I remember the phrase, he saw men with blonde hair and blue eyes.
Oh yeah, I mean,
it was him.
Like you said, it was an epiphany for him, and because he, as he continued to evolve himself, he realized that the whole, race game and stuff that, basically the Nation of Islam was doing the same. Everybody he realized the stuff that we're all just human beings at the end of the day, and that we're all capable of doing devilish things, at the end of the day.
And this whole made-up construct, or they call it construct, which is just a con game of race. The shit was made up by a small handful of people way back in Europe in the late 1600s, so they could control virtually all the social, economic, and political power, resources, and everything that came along with it. And they had to figure out a way to pit the masses against each other, and they created. Europeans never called themselves white before the late 1600s. They never called themselves white. Never. Which I digress. All right. So I'm on the clock, and I know your queen is probably he's probably watching this show. But before I get out of here, I want you, if you could, because we could talk about Brother Malcolm for 8 hours. Shout out.
Nonsense.
But this is important in context. So when we were in college, Rashid and I, Columbia College, and Rashid played for me cassette tapes of Malcolm X's speeches. And we talked about it. I'll never forget, because I forgot this part. He said, well, I'll let you tell the story. I ain't gonna tell your story, but I told my mother, when you weren't certain if I was gonna be cool with hearing this. So
No, it was one of those and stuff. No, I was like, it was like, we connected the first time, I think, and stuff. We really had a conversation with each other. It's like we knew we were brothers, but I was just like, but then, with me, because I was actually at that particular time in my life, I was just coming out of because I'd been training or thought I wanted to be an imam at that time. So so part of me was still on this path of consciousness and righteousness, and I was just like, this is my this is my brother, this is my boy, but I'm just like, if I'm it's like I don't know if he if I wanted to see and stuff, am I too deep, and stuff, and if it's it's like, how is he going to respond to that and stuff, because I mean we were P boys too, I mean, it's like through it all of that, I was like, but there was this side of me that I was just like, I don't know if he's how he's going to respond to the ultra serious, ultra at that particular time, not radical. I wouldn't call it radical, but I mean, but just
the truth. It was about the truth.
Right.
And that's one thing we had in common. We were about the truth.
Right. And I was just but I took a swing at some, and when I threw the cassette on, and it was a live version of the Ballad of the Bullet.
Oh wow.
And I remember I played it. It was like, hey man, are you hip to Malcolm? He said, yeah. I was like, have you heard him though? And you was like, a little bit, but blah 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 blah. I said, you need to listen to this. And then I put it on, and I remember after like probably about the first 10 minutes, it was warming up. I said, you want me to chill, man, turn up? You like, no. And we sat there and listened to however long it was. It may have been an hour and a half, an hour. Right. And I mean, but both just, I mean, literally just, just sitting there attentively and looking at each other, making comments. And I was like, okay. It was one of those, it was like, he gets it. I was like, oh, it's like, this really is my brother, like, so it's like, okay, all right, okay. It's like he's as serious as I am, so, and then I remember afterwards we talked about how everything that he was talking about was relative to where we were then, and it's still relative to where we are right now in certain, and yeah, but yeah, that was it was, and that was like 1978, I think.
So
when you and I,
far back? Yeah, okay. So
yeah, it was
real quick. I got to make you laugh. So my mother just posted. She's like, "Who is this? Your guest today?" So mother, by now this is your other son. So by now you figured out this is Rashid.
Take the glasses off.
So I know she's gonna want to tell. Oh my, that's Rashid. Oh my God,
yeah.
I love her. Tell her I get to tell her I love her. So I know she's like really laughing and freaking out. She's like, I thought that was Rashid, but because I can hear, you and me both can hear. I knew I thought that was Rashid, but he had his glass. I didn't know it.
Yeah.
So you were right. Your eyes weren't wrong, mother. Yes, that's your other son. That's Rashid. So listen, in closing, because like I said, we could have this conversation for 24 hours. So much about Malcolm and his influence on not just us, but not just the culture, but humanity. What is, especially growing up in the nation, with all the knowledge, and history from your family to your almost chosen path, what is the one thing, the biggest misconception, and what is the one thing about Malcolm X, the person, and Malcolm X, the figure in terms what he stood for? Was really, for me, Malcolm was about the truth. He was honest about himself. He was honest about his journey. Malcolm Malcolm lived what he preached about. Malcolm was really about
Yep.
character. Malcolm
Yeah.
preached about May 22nd, 1962. He gave a speech. The most disrespected, unprotected, neglected person in America is the black woman. And unfortunately, 63 years later, that statement, the most unprotected, neglected, the most disrespected, unprotected, neglected person in America is a black woman. Unfortunately, that is still true. So he was about truth, but the way he lived his life, the father, the husband, people envied him and they tried to, crack jokes and they hated on him because they couldn't live up to the standards that when they got to learn who the man was, that the man really, he walked in that light. What he preached, he lived it. He lived it. But he explained his journey that the man he became, even once he joined the nation, there was an evolution after that. He was constantly evolving to be a better man. And I think that's the example for all of us as humans. So if you don't mind, and speak to what's the biggest misconception, or what's the one thing that people need to know about who Malcolm X, Malcolm Little, Hajj Malik El Shabazz, who he really was.
I would say in short, he was probably the most evolved human being, righteous human being within that period of time that he decided to take the path of righteousness.
Yes.
And it is a shame that this brother was cut down the way that he was. It is an absolute shame, regardless of whomever was, behind the conspiracy to take his life. That was a shame. It was we were all cut short. Especially his family and the way that this brother died. And I would have loved to have seen how he would have evolved, given a little bit more time on this earth, man.
Yes,
I really would have.
Yes. Oh my God.
Yeah, because I think he would have been something even more special.
Yeah. And he did all that in only 39 years, cuz.
And he was definitely our prince. He was definitely our prince. He was definitely our voice. Not only that and stuff. Even with the folks that I know and stuff within the nation and outside of the nation, one thing is constant when you ask them about him, and that is that he was serious. All of us know Malcolm was serious. Okay, So.
Let me say this. I love,
right.
and hold your thought, pick back up, but you use the phrase, you use the adjective that is so accurate. And I hadn't used it in all me talking about just the impact and the fire he lit and how he changed my life in terms of the fire that he lit and how he resonated and how I connected with him. And it's amazing. I guess, and that was our bond because when I first reading the book, before I even heard his voice, hearing his voice on the pages of that autobiography spoke to me, and it lit a fire inside of me. But the word you used was righteous. And his journey, it was a journey to, once he decided that he was on the path of righteousness, he was on it. And it wasn't talk.
Yes, he was.
He didn't talk about, I can't even remember, because out of all the tapes you played, I never recall ever hearing him say how righteous he was.
Yep.
He lived it.
Yes, he did. And everybody that's ever spoken of him, that knew of him, will tell you the same. This brother was, he was the real deal. He didn't fake it. He was committed. And bore the Constitution, to back it up. So yes.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. You did a great job. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Oh man.
To your queen, Flav, you know, you families, I love you. Listen, you know, I love your husband. We've been family for a long time. And there are very few people, you know, I mean, people throw around that family term, but we've been family forever. So, you know, I love you and I appreciate you.
Likewise, man. You know that too.
Thank you for the education and the enlightenment and the insight, because you were in a unique and still in a unique position with your background. Because I wanted to honor Malcolm's birthday today, a day before mine, and to use my platform to celebrate his life, to celebrate his journey, and if nothing else, I think I'm gonna go back to what Rashid said, everybody, that when he decided that he was on the path, the journey of righteousness, now whatever righteousness looks like to you, he was committed to it. And he wasn't committed to it in words as much as he was committed to it in his action and his behavior consistently every day. And the words were just kind of icing on the cake. But if he never said a word, people who saw Malcolm X saw that righteousness and that commitment. And you could model your life on how this man lived his life and how he spoke up for those. He gave a voice to the voiceless, and
yes,
even and spoke. He was about truth, even when it cost him his life, against the church that accepted him, and taught him and everything. But when he saw the truth and hypocrisy, even with the leader, he was like, "Wait a minute! Oh, well, hold on now. You have taught me that this is the way to live and to be righteous. But you taught me this, but you are living this way." And I'm sure, because in the movie, he talked about he was devastated. Because Malcolm, he would have given his life for Elijah Muhammad.
Yes. Yes.
So
yes.
if you haven't read the autobiography of Malcolm X by Alex Haley, everybody watching me, you got to read it. Go read it and then watch Spike Lee's movie again. Rashid Abdullah, film producer, documentarian, editor, writer, just media mogul. Thank you, brother. I love you, cuz. Thank you. This is the early birthday present. Thank you on behalf of everybody watching me live and all those who will watch this whenever. Thank you for enlightening us and giving us kind of, pulling that curtain, opening that curtain and giving us a peek at not just who Malcolm was, but the influence that he had on millions of young people. Because in closing, the CIA, FBI, those who were within the nation who felt that he was a traitor or Judas, those who wanted to silence Malcolm, what they don't realize, they probably do now, is that they gave him his assassination, kind of gave him and his spirit superpower. Because Malcolm X, like Dr. King, was not very, if you did a Gallup poll, 70% of black people didn't approve of Malcolm X.
No, he was considered, I think it was, we said earlier, he was an enigma almost. He was almost an anti-hero, because Malcolm was talking about revolution and uniting and blah blah, all of the things that
spoke against wars and
in a democratic society you supposedly don't want to hear those kinds of things. So especially revolution, that's the last thing that you ever want to hear. But again, he spoke to the times.
And before you get out, but it's so important because there's always been this narrative, he's a revolutionary, i.e. the media, especially corporately owned white media, always try to portray Malcolm as like that he was violent and evil and that he hated white people. And Malcolm didn't hate white people. Malcolm hated racism and oppression.
That's what he did. Yes, exactly.
And he was not, he never advocated violence Listen to the tapes that I listened to.
No,
He advocated for self-defense.
yes, he did. Yes, he did. And if you ever get an opportunity to read up on this man, if you ever get an opportunity to listen to any of his old audio files, you will, or on YouTube, if you ever see any of his old interviews and stuff, you will see for yourself that everything he talked about was relevant to the time that he was living in.
60 years ago.
Right.
60 years
But
ago.
no, he was not violent, and he did not commit any violent acts while he
Never.
was in the nation or after being in the Nation of Islam. So, yeah.
Beautiful, cuz. Oh, okay. She's like, oh my God, Lord, I love you, Rashid. God bless you, my
I
other
love
son.
you too, darling.
I love you. You bless your family. So there's your message on your way out the door. I knew she was gonna say that.
I love you too, darling. Okay.
All right, cuz. I love you, man. Thank you so much.
Love you too, bro.
All right, Flav,
Okay,
I
man.
love you. I love you, my. Thank you. Thank you for long. I know I went over. Blame it on me.
Okay.
I owe you.
Okay.
Charge me.
Okay.
You know, I'm
We're
in the
good.
overtime. So man, go
We're
enjoy your
good.
queen, man, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
All
Happy
right.
birthday, bro.
All right, appreciate you, man. Thank you. All right,
Okay.
everybody. That's Rashid Abdullah. He's a journalist, filmmaker, producer, documentarian. Started off as an editor. He was an editor primarily for CNN, and he edits for CCTV. That's the communist China's version of CNN, with communist China TV. That's what the CCTV stands for. And they have a bureau here in America. So he works at the bureau that's here in America, along with, like I said, he does independent films and documentaries. So I want to thank him. But he grew up in the nation. So you heard that. And please be sure to copy and paste the link to this show. Be sure to tag and share. It was a very powerful show. And for those who, I need to put myself on camera. I'm talking to y'all, and y'all looking at a damn mountain. Because my ass, I got my birthday on my mind, maybe. But there's been so many stories about Malcolm X and a lot of talk about Malcolm X, but a lot of people haven't studied, maybe more now than before. Spike Lee's movie, it was an important part of our culture. For our culture is Black Americans, but as Americans of all backgrounds, white, Hispanic, Asian, Native American, Spike did such a powerful job, and it was pretty close, about as close as any movie could be in terms of being accurate to the autobiography of Malcolm X written by Alex Haley, which basically it was Malcolm's words. Malcolm spoke to you, like Rashid said, that Malcolm spoke to him. And when I first read that book, when I was in high school in the late 70s, I remember I was a sophomore, that it spoke to me. And it's like I could hear Malcolm X's voice speaking to me, reading his autobiography. And Alex Haley, basically, he just transcribed the words that Malcolm X spoke to him in terms of talking about his journey, his life, and did a brilliant job as a writer putting it on page, but making sure that the words, that it was Malcolm's voice. And it spoke to me, like I said, and it lit a fire inside of me at 15. And then 3 or 4 years later, when I got a chance to hear those tapes that Rashid played for me, speeches of Malcolm X, the fire just got more intense and hotter and brighter. And then, I went on my own journey, and, any chance I got to learn something about Malcolm X, talk to people who were in the nation or who just understood history and documentaries. And then when Spike Lee's movie came out, I was like, oh my God, But I know I read the autobiography of Malcolm X a couple times. But shout out to Miss Hopkins, and thank you. Shout out to my mom, who put the book in the house. And in essence, she put the book in my hand because she put the book, it was a gift to her. But she put it out knowing that I was very curious. I loved reading. I loved that. Reading was a passion. I love sports. I had a chance to be a pro athlete in 2 sports. And my mother reminded me that the passion that I had for reading was equal to the passion I had for sports. And I didn't think about that until I talked to my mother a couple hours ago. And I still have that passion, but I had a passion for reading and for learning, and was curious and just wanted to know and learn and understand who I was and who my people were and where we came from, all that. And Malcolm hit that autobiography, and I encourage everybody, I don't care if you're black, white, if you want to appreciate a journey of a human, and a journey to where they wanted, and I love the adjective that Rashid used, when he decided to step on that path of righteousness, he was committed, and he was serious, and he was for real. As the kids would say, he was authentic. My grandfather had a term, he was the genuine article. Or my grandfather would say, he was the real McCoy, which is really, a McCoy was a black man who was a famous inventor. Hence the term, the real McCoy. McCoy made it, this black inventor named McCoy, Google, I forgot his first name, that you knew it was real. If McCoy, this black man McCoy invented it and built it, it was real. Hence the term, the real McCoy. My grandfather, I can hear his voice now, Conway Jones. Malcolm, he was the real McCoy. He was the genuine article. He was authentic. He kept it 1,000. Malcolm kept it 1 million, 1 billion. So I hope you enjoyed today's tribute to Malcolm X. I've been so excited all day. I mentioned last week I was going to do this. So, and I want to thank everybody who took the time to indulge and watch the show. So please share this show. And if you're listening, if you're watching me right now, whenever live or whenever you're watching the show, once again, I want to take this time to ask you very humbly, and I mean that, to please continue to support the show, not just by your views, not just by your likes, click the thumbs up, not just with sharing the show, sharing it on your other social media pages, or sharing it on the pages of others that you know, that you follow, to your fans or family or followers, but to support the show and my media company and the mission of this show by supporting the show financially. It is so important. Your financial support is really needed so I can grow this show and continue to speak truth to power, and to empower and enlighten and inspire and uplift and educate our culture and our community, because we are all we got, but we are truly all we need. But speak to humanity speak to humanity overall and in general. Because really, the truth is, we are part of one race, the human race. And this whole concept of race, it's a con game. Like we say, it was created for a small handful of people, like 1%. That sound familiar? Just like 1% of the people who wanted to control and grow their social, economic, and political power, and control wealth, political power, social power, resources, minerals, precious minerals and metals, diamonds, gold. Sound familiar? You had men centuries ago, small handful, that wanted to control all that and divide it up among themselves and pit the majority of the rest of us against each other so they could use fear and hate and bigotry and misogyny and sexism and homophobia and religious bigotry to use that as to create and use that as weapons, or to get us to use those things as weapons against each other. Because all those things I just mentioned, they knew if they could create these divisions and feed the racism and that bigotry and hate and religious bigotry and you name it, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, anti-Asian hate and bigotry in all of its forms, and misogyny and sexism, homophobia, all of that, xenophobia, that they created those divisions among the masses, that the small, that 1% will become wealthy beyond their wildest dreams. Because hate, fear, and bigotry in all of its forms, misogyny, sexism, has always been and is still today big business, huge business for a small handful of people, 1%. And the fear was brothers like Malcolm X and Dr. Martin Luther King at the end of his life, and Fred Hampton Jr. spoke to that. They spoke to the common humanity. Fred Hampton freaked out folks, just like Malcolm went to Mecca and was like, there's an evolution. I prayed as a Muslim. I prayed with men with blonde hair and blue eyes. So his whole, just the whole energy when it came to race, he evolved and realized that there were people who used race as a weapon. This construct was created because it's not real. It's made up. Race is not scientific. Race is not biological. Whatever bullshit they tell you, eugenics, all this made it. There's nothing in the human genome, in human biology, if you ever get a DNA test and the results come back, it will not say you are 92% white or 98% black. It will not say that. It will speak to the region that your ancestors are from Europe, from Africa, specific country on the continent of Africa, or Europe, or Eurasia, or the Caucasoid Mountains. You want to have that conversation? That's what a human DNA test will tell you. It will never come back and say, oh, you were 85% white. It will not. And when people like Malcolm X and Dr. King spoke against wars and oppression and about people using whatever form of government, be it democracies or communism and capitalism, when it was used to benefit a few and divide and hold down economically, socially, and politically the power of the many. And Malcolm spoke out against that. Dr. King spoke out against that. And Fred Hampton Jr. spoke out against that. And it cost them their life. So today and every day, live like Brother Malcolm lived once he got on the path of righteousness. And he lived it with all the incredible speeches. What resonated with Malcolm X more than what he said was how he lived his life every day. How consistent his walk of righteousness was. And it was so consistent, and it was so loud, and it was so bright, and it was so clear and real and authentic and organic and uncompromised that friend and foe could see it. You could hate on him, you could say whatever, but the truth was you saw how this man lived his life once he got on the path of righteousness, to where it caused him to question the man who brought him to Allah. The man who he said, in his own words, that he worshiped, that he revered and adored, so much to where he would have gladly given his life for Elijah Muhammad. The reverence he had. And then he was devastated when he learned of the hypocrisy of how Elijah Muhammad had been living as opposed to what Elijah Muhammad was teaching in public. That what he taught to others, and how people found out how he was living his life toward the end, didn't match. And Malcolm called it out because it devastated him. Because Malcolm was that real righteous dude. Malcolm lived the righteous life that he preached about. And he lived it every day with how he treated his wife and his family and his community. And it wasn't phony. And he was, like Rashid said, he was serious. No bullshit. It was a line in the movie, this ain't no hustle. This ain't no con. This ain't no hustle. And there was no con and no hustle about Malcolm X. Thank you, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed the show, enjoyed it as much as I have. Thank you for letting me be a part of your life. God bless each and every one of you, and especially you. Once again, for those, please, I would be honored, and I humbly ask for your financial support for my company and this show so it can grow. So you can Zelle a donation. There's no donation too small or too large. If you want to throw a little birthday blessing for a brother and his business, you can do that. Since my birthday's on May 20th, Tuesday, tomorrow, if you're watching me live. So you can Zelle me. You can Zelle a contribution to my media company, to my show. You can Zelle me, Geno, just type in my name, Geno Jones, type in Geno Jones, then use my email address, GenoJonesShow@gmail, GenoJonesShow@gmail. So you can Zelle a contribution, financial contribution to my Zelle. You can Cash at me, $Dad G Jones is all one word. $, capital D like Daddy, lowercase a like Apple, lowercase d like David, capital G like Geno, capital J like Jones, lowercase o like Oprah, lowercase n like Nancy, lowercase e like Extra, lowercase s like Sam. $, capital Dad, capital $, Dad, or Dad G Jones. So $, capital D, lowercase a d, capital G, capital J, lowercase o n e s. And once again, you can Zelle me. Just type in my name, Geno Jones, and then you can Zelle. You can contact my media company, so you can make a contribution, or you can Zelle me money by using my email address after you type in my name, my email address, GenoJonesShow@gmail. Shout out to City Vibes Bar and Lounge, longtime sponsor, 9730 Dorchester Road, Corey and Kenya Williams, incredible adult night spot, bar and lounge, great entertainment, like clean adult. I ain't talking about, no, we're not talking about Magic City, not that kind of adult entertainment. You know, it's just 30 and over, basically. So great music, food, fun, you name it. And the Crate Group, one of the top nonprofits in America, the Crate Group, and their CEO, Brother Kendrick Bannister. Thank you for your support. Shout out to Allie Jones, the official wardrobe consultant and stylist for the show. You can check out Allie and her Lexi Jones collection. Fashion designer, future superstar. L like Lexi, X like extra dot, N like Nanette, C like Charlie, L like Lexi _. L X dot N like Nanette, C like Charlie, L like Lexi. Shout out to Bruce Gage, also wardrobe consultant. Check out his Mario Uomo collection that you see me wearing on the show many times. Mario Uomo. Uomo is U-O-M-O. Mario, M-A-R-I-O. U-O-M-O. Mario Uomo. Uomo is an Italian surname. On Instagram or IG. On Facebook, he is Bruce Gage. All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Rosalind. Thank you to my mother. I love you. What else can I say? And to everybody watching me now, I love you so much. Everybody watching me live, those who are watching the recorded version of the show, the next live edition of the Geno Jones Show is going to be Wednesday, May 21st. Happy birthday, Ronald Isley. Happy birthday, happy heavenly birthday to the notorious B.I.G. Christopher Wallace. Celebrate a birthday on Wednesday, May 21st. We'll come back 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Central Time, live in Los Angeles. Live on the West Coast, live in Los Angeles, and everybody on the West Coast, 3:30 p.m. Thank you for watching. See you Wednesday, 6:30. Or you can see me anytime you want to. Just go to my YouTube channel. All of my episodes, this and all my episodes are right there.
Subscribe and tune in to the next episode of The Geno Jones Show, exclusively right here on YouTube.